Hey guys, it's Emma Viggling with TYT Politics. I apologize to everyone who was watching the live stream earlier. I don't get it, but I was on the Wi-Fi. This is not on Wi-Fi, so using data for this and somehow that's better than with the Wi-Fi on, I don't really get it. So hopefully this is less glitchy. By the way, quick plug, go check out Jordan's videos where he exclusively broke that not the Donald Trump, but that the oil police were lying about their use of water cannons. They weren't trying to put out fires. They were trying to freeze protesters and water protectors because they have many unmentionable words that should be attached to those oil police. They're not good people, or they're not serving a good cause. So I'm gonna take a very kind of gossipy story from CNN, and again, apologize to people who already heard this before, but what are you gonna do? So this gossipy story from CNN is called "Insults Fly When Trump-Clinton Aides Meet," but it's not, so CNN is gonna take this and they're gonna say, oh, this is so good for our ratings, fighting between the Hillary Clinton and the Trump campaign, just like the election. This is such good gossip. But what you can take from this gossip is something that's actually really fascinating and gives you an immense insight into the fact that, not an immense insight, I don't know what that means, but it gives you insight into the fact that both campaigns are really, really out of touch. In my opinion, especially the Hillary Clinton campaign, and that's evidenced by her loss to this orangutan idiot. But it just goes to show why they think they lost and why they insist they think they lost and why the Trump campaign thinks they won. Both campaigns need a lesson, and they don't really, I think, have the correct outlook that I think that Bernie Sanders has been going around and saying in media outlet after media outlet promoting his new book, Our Revolution, where he seems to kind of get it. Yeah, Trump's victory was a mix of racism, and it was a mix of people feeling desperate and needing economic opportunity. So I'll continue reading the gossipy story from CNN that gets them all erect. 4 weeks after the election, tensions between top operatives at the Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton campaigns erupted during a Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics discussion that was intended to record history by drawing out the internal deliberations of both campaigns. There were periods of calm, substantive discussion about data, metrics, and target states, but many moments where tempers flared. Advisors on opposing sides shouted over each other. Accusations of lying flew between them. Oh, wow, I wonder if chairs were thrown by Bernie bros. I don't know. Was that in the article? No. I'm just, my editorialing. I'm assuming that there were Bernie bros there wielding chairs as weapons. Just my assumption. I have no evidence for that claim, but just assuming. Operatives snapped at one another for interrupting as an air of mutual contempt settled within the room. Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway called members of Clinton's team bitter. Hey guys, we won, Conway said at one point, challenging Clinton's team to accept the results of the election. He was the better candidate, that's why we won. He was the better candidate for the time, for the populist time. Was he the better candidate in terms of experience? No. Was he the better candidate in terms of policy? No. That's, if you believe Hillary Clinton's policy, certainly the better candidate in every single metric, but of course she wasn't trustworthy. So that's and there was an air of economic desperation, which is what Bernie Sanders has been saying over and over again, and the Trump team seems to get that a little bit. The Clinton team still has their head in the sand about it, as this article will illustrate. So. But the Clinton team did not back down after Conway said that we won, get over it. Chief strategist Joel Benenson charged that the Trump campaign was successful in part by sending a series of dog whistles and messages with racial overtones that appealed to white voters who believe the government favored minorities. That is true. Benenson pressured the Trump team to explain exactly who their supporters want to take America back from. He disputed the Trump team's argument that his economic message led him to victory. See, that's where they're wrong. Like Benenson, yeah, Trump did send dog whistles to racists, but he disputed that the Trump team's argument that his economic message led him to victory. How can you dispute that? His whole message was that he was gonna bring jobs back here. And that's what people in the Rust Belt thought, whose jobs had been decimated. So he conned them, and yes, okay, the whole carrier situation is a whole bag of, I was gonna say bag of dicks. It is a whole bag of dicks. They get 1,000 jobs back, but it sets a horrible precedent. But he's already continuing on that platform. You didn't even come up with anything to give the Rust Belt states back their jobs. You just wanted to globalize more with trade deals where you lied about the TPP and pretended like it wasn't Hillary Clinton's position when everyone with 2 eyes and 2 ears knew. So you saying that it wasn't about the economic message, disputing that it was about his economic message, that's troubling. And also incredibly indicative of the entire Democratic Party's response to this embarrassing loss for Hillary Clinton. In a key moment that flipped the initial tone from fairly civil to acrimonious, Clinton advisors Jennifer Palmieri and Finney charged that the Trump campaign was providing a platform for white supremacist views by hiring Breitbart chief executive Steve Bannon. The Trump team had elevated the so-called alt-right movement into the mainstream, they said, with Palmieri adding that Clinton's speech denouncing the extremist movement was the proudest moment of her campaign. Are you going to look me in the face and say I provided a platform for white supremacists? Kellyanne Conway asked incredulously. Both Palmieri and Finney nodded and said yes. I would rather lose than win the way you did, Palmieri said. So, I actually really enjoyed that. So, Palmieri is the communications director for Hillary Clinton. Jordan and her had a testy exchange where I was right there behind the camera. Very interesting stuff. Don't agree with Palmieri on most anything, but what I do agree with her there is I would have rather lost too than appeal to those same dog whistles that Donald Trump did. But what they're not acknowledging is that they could have won easily by appealing to the economic message that he did, but without said dog whistles and without said alt-right movement. But you decide to go not with populism and the Bernie Sanders candidate, you decide to go with corporatism, and look what you get when you have no message. I also will return to the fact that when you have message, that's how you win elections. So ask any layman off the street, what was Donald Trump's policies? Oh, he wants to build a wall. Oh, he wants to bring our jobs back. Great. Ask any layman off the street, what were Bernie Sanders' policies? Oh, he wants to tax the rich. Oh, he's a socialist, maybe they'd say. Oh, he wants to make college tuition free. Great. What were Hillary Clinton's policies? What was her message? I'm still waiting. Jennifer Palmieri, communications director, who's supposed to communicate to the American people the message of Hillary Clinton. So, before you say that it was all about race, maybe take a step back and think, not everyone in this country that voted for Donald Trump is a racist. They're actually just hurting. And you weren't able to communicate how you would help them and stop them from hurting. And as was so famously ingrained into political lore in the campaign of Hillary Clinton's husband in the 90s, it's the economy, stupid. So, we continue. You guys are pathetic, Trump advisor David Bossie replied, accusing them of a smear campaign against Bannon. Bannon can smear himself. Bossie argued that Clinton lost not because of headwinds, but because of distrust due to a long series of self-inflicted wounds. Exactly. Bossie and Conway charged that the Clinton campaign was in denial about why their candidate had lost, in part their refusal to acknowledge that she was a bad candidate. Exactly. But here, the article continues. You guys took everything Donald Trump said so literally, is what the Trump campaign charges. Clinton advisors also blamed unfair media coverage. God, this conversation is happening as if reality doesn't exist. Noting that it was a struggle every day to get Clinton's message to break through the media environment dominated by Trump. But they were also super biased towards you and everyone could see it. There was also a fierce criticism of the press by the Trump campaign. One of the odder complaints came from former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. That's the problem with the media. You guys took everything Donald Trump said so literally, Lewandowski said. The American people don't. They understood it. They understood sometimes when you have a conversation with people, whether it's around the dinner table or at a bar, you're going to say some things, and sometimes you don't have the facts to back it up. So, Corey Lewandowski, who, by the way, you are a member of the media now, so your criticism is very strange. You're saying that we should hold Donald Trump's political rhetoric to the standard of someone at a bar? That's all I have to say about that. Several Clinton advisors also argue that there was an unfair double standard for Clinton within the press that was driven particularly by her gender. And we go. This is the track you return to every single time. Mook notes, Robbie Mook, noted that the press often focused on how she delivered her message in a way that would have not been scrutinized in a male candidate. Oh my lord, it's an oldie but a goodie. She's been an uncomfortable presence for a long time by breaking gender barriers, Palmieri said. I'm having an aneurysm reading this. When the Clinton team was asked whether they would have done anything differently, Palmieri said the one mistake was not arguing for a fourth debate shortly before the election. When Clinton wasn't on stage with Trump, it was difficult for her message to break through, she said, setting up a dynamic of Hillary versus Hillary. Well, who set that dynamic up? Jennifer Palmieri. Maybe Hillary in the Hillary versus Hillary match. This is the best part. Undecided voters didn't break our way, Mook said of election night. The Comey letter... Oh my god, if I hear about this again, I'm going to kill myself. Benson said while the race was incredibly fluid in the final weeks, they were closely watching both Trump and Clinton defectors, voters who were considering third-party candidates. In the final weeks before Election Day, they were coming home, first to Trump and then to Clinton, but the Comey letter, 11 days before the election, stalled that movement back to Clinton. Benenson said, those last 11 days we couldn't get them back. They all went to third-party candidates. So, you're convinced that the Comey letter did you in the Rust Belt. That's what those voters really, really cared about. So that's why they went to Jill Stein. Because Comey reopened an investigation for 3 days. You stupid idiots. You don't understand the country at all. And you know what? Like, I don't know why I expect them to. But look, like, I make it clear where I grew up. You know, I make it clear what my background is. Just get out of your little bubble. Expand your mind. Look at different media sources, and then you'll understand the kind of pain people are in. I grew up around these kind of people. It's not that hard, but it's not convenient for them to understand outside of their little bubble. It's not convenient of them to acknowledge that Hillary Clinton was a flawed candidate. It's not convenient for them to acknowledge that Bernie Sanders' movement is the direction of the party, that the way that the party should be going. Because that affects their jobs, that affects their livelihood, that affects their corporate friends. And either they're willfully ignorant and they're just in their little circle jerk, or they are stupid. I don't know. But the idea that you think that if they're convinced that the Comey letter is what did her in, either that's a public face that they're putting on, or they really misunderstand and fundamentally misunderstand politics, and there's no hope for them whatsoever. So, yes, Trump's campaign, she was an immensely flawed candidate. Yes, for those particular states in the center of the country, he was the better candidate, which is really setting a low bar for her. But do either of these two campaigns fundamentally understand what needs to be done for this country to move forward? Doesn't seem that way. So that's what I'm taking from this gossipy story. All right, have a great day, my friends.